about the different exercises is not enough into engaging into a self-guided training program. You also have to be equipped with the basic knowledge on how to go about your training. This way, you are ensuring a program that is both effective and safe for you as you go on your fitness journey. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the different principles of exercise in planning or designing a specific exercise program. Second is to gain knowledge on proper progressive exercise and its roles in injury prevention. Third is to recognize particular activities that would promote the application of different exercise principles through exercise programs. Lastly, is to understand the importance of exercise principles in inhibiting adaptations to the body. This part of the course will cover the following topics. First is the FIT principle, the overload principle, specificity, progression, variation, individualization, reversibility, law of diminishing returns, arrangement of exercises, warm up and cool down, progressive resistance training, retrogression, and recovery. It seems like the topics are a lot to take in, but we will go through it in a breeze. And I hope that you will be knowledgeable enough on how to structure a program for yourself. Later, you will notice in the lesson that some of the topics have already been mentioned in the previous discussions we've had. This is just an in-depth understanding of those concepts. I hope that you will enjoy learning about principles in exercise and hopefully figure out what makes your previous training programs or exercise feats unsuccessful. Knowing what, when, and how much to work out is a sure step to achieving a life of fitness. These principles will surely help you as you go along on your own fitness journey. Of course, just like all the other lessons we've had, always make sure to pay attention to the details of the discussion. There will be a 10-item quiz after this lesson. That is in the form of a multiple choice or identification. The key concepts that we will discuss today will be included in the quiz. So, be sure to give your 100% in understanding the lesson. Also, at the end of this lesson is a sample training program that you can use for 4 weeks. It's a program that incorporates all the principles that we will discuss today. I hope that after this lesson, you will eagerly begin this training program and you will enjoy the benefits of improving both your cardiovascular endurance and muscular endurance. Do you still remember what exercise means? From the previous discussions we've had, how does exercise differ from physical activity? I hope that you can still remember that exercise is a type of physical activity that requires planned, structured, and repetitive bodily movements. This is in accordance to the goal or the objective of improving your actual physical fitness level. A goal that you have set for yourself that should be SMART. Remember this? Something that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Sticking to this type of goal gets you a higher chance of success in achieving fitness. From the previous lessons we've had, I kept on reminding you that the human body is very much adaptable. When demands are imposed on it, it knows and highly adjusts to meet these specific demands. It doesn't shut down, nor does it choose to give up when stressors or loads are placed upon it, because its initial reaction is to fight and survive. Partly because this has been an innate trait in us since our early existence. Anyway, knowing this, the definition and purpose of exercise again, we can now be able to start with a good footing as to why the different exercise principles are very much important in any training program. Exercise, just like time management, is dependent on 3 main factors. I've mentioned some of this from the earlier lessons we've had, and I hope you can still remember them. The 3 factors that exercise is dependent on are your level of fitness, your specific goals, and the specific component you want to particularly develop. The goal of any physical training is to produce long-term changes and improvements in the body's functioning. If this is not your goal at the start of the training program, chances are your program's bound to fail, and you will not be successful with any programs that you would want to commit yourself to someday. These three factors are your focus if you want to start changing your life now. If you don't consider these three, then you'd always end up going back to square one. From the previous lessons, I've also mentioned numerous types of exercises and the components of fitness that it can possibly develop. From simply walking, to running, to engaging in regular weight training, these are all activities that can develop your muscular endurance, strength, flexibility, among others. We are just connecting the pieces together, and in a while you will know how you can further progress in your program in case you really do want to stick with one. Let's begin exploring the most basic principle in exercise, which is the FITT principle. F stands for frequency, I stands for intensity, T stands for time, and the other T stands for type of exercise. These four are the most important things you need to consider as a beginner in exercise or in fitness. Let's try to explore them one by one in the next parts of this lesson. First in the FIT principle is frequency. Frequency obviously refers to the question, how often? How often do you need to engage in exercise for you to reap its said benefits? Regular exercise actually develops fitness, but regular exercise is very different from doing optimum exercise. Your goal is not just to be fit, but you also need to achieve a certain level of skill that you know you can still improve on as the years progress. Optimum exercise, unlike regular exercise, is a structured type of exercise that aims to vary its focus depending on the specific fitness components you'd want to develop. Remember when I told you that if you want to build on endurance, do endurance activities like jogging, running, and biking? Also, I told you some time back that if you want to build on your muscular strength and power, you must engage in resistance exercise. This is what separates optimum exercise from regular exercise. Walking for 30 minutes to an hour a day may become a regular thing, but after a certain period of time, what overall good does it do to you? As opposed to focusing on one component and gradually building up to the next. Frequency is a principle that would ensure your success rate in your training program. Find time in your schedule to fit regular and optimum exercise. You may do it every other day with rests in between, or even every day with rests during a Saturday or a Sunday. However it is that you're going to strategize your time and how are you going to answer that question of how often clearly depends on you. Can you still remember the different health and skill-related fitness components? Do you still remember how often you must exercise if you are aiming to improve your endurance? How about for your strength and flexibility? I have mentioned this too many times during our discussions about the musculoskeletal system and the fitness testing. The frequency at which you exercise determines your overall physical adaptation to the load you are putting onto your body. If you want to improve on your aerobic capacity or your endurance, you must follow a strict exercise frequency of 3 to 5 days within a week. Anything more than 5 days would cause you injuries. Also, anything less than 3 days will cause you difficulties in improving your fitness, or worse, you will see no improvements in yourself as you go through your program. What are some aerobic exercises that I've mentioned earlier? Can you still remember them? The activity could be as simple as walking for 30 minutes or starting to jog on a daily basis. Whatever it is, I hope that by now you have chosen a specific exercise that you want to engage in and can specifically stick to for a long period of time. Second is the ideal frequency for developing your muscular strength and endurance. The training frequency for developing muscular strength and endurance, on the other hand, is ideally at 2 to 3 non-consecutive days per week. This is to allow the body a minimum of 24 hours and a maximum of 48 hours of recovery or complete rest. Studies have proven that getting the ample resting period during weight training develops the muscle fibers better compared to those people who physically exert themselves doing resistance training on a daily basis. Muscles, just like machines, when pushed beyond their limits, will no longer be able to work at high intensities. At this stage, it is easier to feel fatigue, sore, and worse is to incur self-inflicted injuries. Unlike aerobic exercises that you can perform on a daily basis, muscular strength and endurance exercises need muscle recovery in order for it to function at its maximum. When you're a beginner in exercise, you tend to get all hyped out about the activity that you sometimes overlook the concept of rest. Resting is as important as the training itself. In fact, if you allowed your body to have the ample amount of rest, it would gladly return the favor to you by functioning better. So, as you start your program soon, don't forget to take a day or 2 days of rest to keep your body's functions at its optimum. The last exercise type is for developing flexibility. Unlike all the other training programs, flexibility can be done on a daily basis. The ideal way to go to improve your flexibility is that you should always incorporate it at the start and at the end of any training program. Remember the 2 types of stretches I mentioned? What is the difference of a static stretch from dynamic stretch? Dynamic stretches are moving stretches that you ideally perform at the start or beginning of an exercise, while static stretches are non-moving stretches that you do after a workout. The amount and type of stretches you perform can actually have a great effect on your overall performance and recovery. This is because your joints are given the enough space to move freely together with the movements of your muscles and bones. Here are some tips when you perform flexibility exercises. First is that you should not stretch muscles that are cold, as this may cause injuries and limit your flexibility further. Second is that the ideal way to stretch is when your muscles are all warmed up. This way, your muscles have already been greased with chemical exchanges. Lastly, the best and ideal time to improve your flexibility is to always incorporate this after any type of exercise routine that you will engage into. Particularly incorporating flexibility exercises, both in your warm-up and cool-down, helps blood to flow easily within your surrounding muscles. Aside from this, incorporating flexibility exercises, specifically at the end of the program, helps remove lactic acid buildup on your muscles. This then prevents your muscles from becoming too sore, and it inhibits its speedy recovery. These tips lessen or prevent the chances of you getting injured. Observing your stretch timing is crucial in any exercise routine, and you must always include these flexibility exercises every single time. All 3 types of exercises are different in nature. Therefore, the frequency at which they must be performed within the week should also differ. When you start with an exercise program, make sure to consider the frequency part of the F.I.T.T principle. This way, you can be more successful in your fitness feat. Knowing how often and setting the time as to when you are going to work out is the first step in convincing yourself for the change that you are about to undertake. So, start writing the ideal plan for you and begin to tag your calendars with the appropriate exercise timing. Remember that it's better to start somewhere than to never have started at all. The next in the FIT principle is intensity. This principle focuses on how hard you are supposed to exert effort in your workout. The goal of this principle is to push you to exercise more than your normal level. This should not be done on occasions that you feel like exerting effort, but rather, in every exercise routine, your effort should be more than 100%. Yes, you heard me right. More than 100%. Why does it have to be like this? How many times have you attempted to work out in your life and you always end up falling short? Maybe this principle has something to do with that. Believe me when I say that you actually need to stress your body enough to inhibit improvements and adaptations. Yes, I repeat, you need to stress your body enough to feel improvements. Exercising lower than normal or with little exertion can waste both your energy and your time. Remember how to get your heart rate before and after exercise? This has actually everything to do with how hard you are exerting effort. Your pulse rates are along your neck or your wrist, and you usually count the number of beats it does within a minute. I hope you still remember target heart rate zones from the previous lessons we've had. This has everything to do with intensity. From the chart, you can determine at which zone you must exert effort, depending on the goal that you want to achieve for yourself. Determining your heart rate is actually a crucial part of exercise. Some athletes who become great with their workout routines are very conscious as to the level of exertion their heart experiences during their trainings. Getting your heart rate is a discipline that you must always carry with you during your workout routines. Not knowing under which zone you are going to train for is like going blind while driving a car on a busy road. How hard should you exert effort in certain kinds of activities? Just the same in the earlier part of the FIT principle, the intensity at which you work out is dependent on the type of activity that you want to specifically engage in. In strength training, intensity is measured through the amount of weight you lift, which is safe to say that the intensity you put is measured best through trial and error. Of course, you don't lift 100 kilograms during your first attempt in doing squats, but instead, you gauge and condition yourself to start off with the lightest weight and work your way up from there. Intensity is also different when you are engaged in aerobic activities. Say for example in running. During your first attempt, you don't run the whole marathon, but rather you start small and work your way little by little. While in flexibility, you don't just twist and contort your body as you please, but instead, you do it with baby steps. You bend or extend your body little by little or day by day if you want to perform a split. Intensity, just like frequency, is an exercise principle that you need to seriously consider. This is because not only does it help you in achieving a certain level of fitness, but it also ensures your safety throughout your progress in fitness. Yes, safety. It should always be your number one priority every time you decide to move your body. I know that exercising entails a lot of experiments, trials, and errors, but you have to always make sure that you are safe. The next step to achieving safety is knowing about the intensity of your program at all times. Too much of everything puts you at a high risk in injuring yourself, so better be safe than sorry. The next principle in the FIT principle is time. This principle refers to the exact time or duration of an exercise bout that you aim to do. Knowing how long should you be working out is a good step in gaining the maximum benefits from your exercise. This principle's main goal is for you to find the appropriate duration for each type of activity you do, whether it be cardio, strength and endurance, or flexibility trainings. Time is also dependent on the intensity of your workout. The higher the intensity that you do, you must always make sure that the bout of exercise is shorter. If your intensity is average or low, you must do the opposite and make the exercise bout longer. Time has everything to do with the adaptation that the body goes through when it is put in a specific stress response situation. If you don't know the exact duration of your exercise bout, you might end up either overtraining yourself because you are pushing your body to do more than it can recover from. Or sometimes it could be the exact opposite, where you don't reap any benefits at all from your exercise because adaptation time did not set in within your body. As I said earlier, the time that you spend for exercise is also dependent on the type of activity you want to engage in. Do you want to improve your cardiovascular endurance, build your strength, or improve your flexibility? Each type of activity needs a specific duration for your body to be able to obtain the benefits it offers. If you want to improve on your cardiorespiratory endurance, you must ideally exercise between 20 to 60 minutes. Training for muscular endurance should not exceed beyond 2 hours and should be allotted at least 24 hours of rest in between. While in flexibility training, the duration of each stretch should at least last for 30 seconds that should be repeated 3 to 4 times per muscle groups. Unlike cardio and weight training, flexibility exercises can be performed every day, and there is no actual limit as to how long you can stretch. The only measure to stop stretching is when you have already achieved the appropriate range of motion of each joints within your body. From all of these things, I hope you can now see that when you exercise, it's not just about the movements that you do, but the time at which you spend in doing the activity can also greatly affect the adaptation of your body to stress. Too little or too much time you spend in the gym or wherever you are working out can greatly impact how well your body will respond to the stress. So, you must make sure that you are putting the right amount of load on it for you to reap the many benefits of the right exercise. The last part of the FIT principle asks the question, what kind of activity? You don't and should never undergo a fitness journey without first asking this question to yourself. Knowing what specific activity you want to pursue keeps you on track on your way to fitness. Not knowing what exactly to do and what to develop will only make you unsuccessful in your journey to fitness. You should make it clear in your head what exactly it is that you want to do. This way, you are conditioning your mind for the activity that you are about to undertake. Remember that exercise is not just about moving the body, but it also greatly requires your focus and concentration. It is not just a challenge to the body, but rather a challenge for the mind to perform more than what is expected of it. Choosing the type of activity that specifically interests or brings curiosity in you is something that you should aim to pursue. Those are the different FIT principles. This is the most basic principle in exercise. It is very easy to remember and is actually the most important principle out of all the other exercise principles. It sets the course for you to have a successful training activity that you will not only enjoy, but also something that you would correctly perform. Before you engage in any activity, you should not forget to ask yourself these series of questions. This way, you are setting your course to a fitness journey that will be done continuously and hopefully for a lifetime. The FIT principle sets the base for all the other principles that we will breeze through in this lesson. I hope that at the end of the course, you have a more meaningful foundation in engaging in exercise. What is the next exercise principle? This principle is often the most overlooked principle in exercise, and it is known as the principle of overload. This principle is overlooked because exercise entails a lot of experimentation. These experimentations may lead to little or too much stress, which we will discuss in this part of the lesson. I'm sure at one point in your life you have exercised or at least attempted to exercise. Did you notice anything about your performance? As the activity progressed, did you notice how much your strength has improved? This is what the overload principle is all about. The body becomes stronger and functions better if you increase the demands or stress on it. I did not mean to say that if you lift 5 kilograms today, the next session you lift 40 kilograms. This is where people engaging in exercise endanger themselves in the process. The trick to this principle is to perform the right amount of progression. What do I mean by this? Lift 5 kilograms today, the next session lift 6 to 10 kilograms of weight. As you progress through your strength training routine, you'll notice that your body can bear more load, and that's the time that you should increase your training further. If you know and apply the right amount of progression in your training, your fitness level will continue to increase. Too little overload causes no effect on fitness developments, while too much overload causes injuries. You have to remember that your body is an adaptive machine, and that whatever challenge you place upon it, it resists the stress and it eventually adapts for it to survive. Putting the right amount of overload will cause you to have great fitness benefits. Another secret to the overload principle is for you to learn how to listen to your body. Your body knows when it is too much or too little stress already. That's why when each specific situation pops out, you need to listen intently for signs that you either need to push harder or completely stop. The third principle in training or exercise is known as the principle of specificity. Just like what I've been mentioning in the earlier parts of the lesson, exercise should always aim to develop a certain component or several components of fitness. It should be specifically designed to do this so that you will have a goal for yourself on how much effort and what type of effort you are going to exert in certain kinds of activities. Being specific in choosing the right exercise can also be a measure or a gauge for you to see your areas of strengths and weaknesses in your training program. Simply put, specificity is like this. If you want to develop your cardiorespiratory endurance, perform cardiorespiratory activities like running, biking, or walking. If you want to develop your muscular strength and endurance, engage in resistance training, either with the use of free weights, exercise machines, or only your body as your lever. While if you want to improve your flexibility, you should perform stretching and other flexibility activities. You cannot and you should not interchange these types of trainings with each other. You cannot expect to develop flexibility if you keep on performing weight training exercises. And in the same way, you can't improve on your cardiovascular endurance if you keep performing stretching exercises in your training regimen. Specificity addresses this concern and it puts you in the right path on your fitness map because your goals are clear and you know what to specifically develop or improve on your body. Now you know that exercise should entail overload and specificity. Let's now proceed to the next principles of training, which are progression and variation. What are they and how are they associated with each other? For the rest of the lesson, keep in mind that the body is an adaptive machine that needs stress at certain amounts for it to be able to function efficiently. This statement relates to the principles of progression and variation. Progression, just like what I've mentioned earlier, has something to do with the FIT principle of intensity. In order for you to gain the benefits of exercise, you must continuously present it with different stresses or changing stimuli. This shifts the brain to focus on different stressors, causing the body to experience different overloads. When this happens, the body then inhibits several positive physical adaptations. While variation is changing your activities, enable for you to prevent boredom from happening, and you won't lose interest in your training program. Both are somewhat associated or related with each other because of their ability to provide you with the ample stressors you need in exercise. Without progressing or varying your activities, you will experience plateau in your training routine. What is plateau in exercise? Every single time you exercise, your aim should always be to reach the highest peak of your performance. Eventually, as you become used to the activity, your body adapts to the stress and it needs to be challenged all over again. Without the ample progressive and varying activities, you will begin to experience little or no improvements at all. This is known as a plateau in exercise performance, where there aren't enough stressors or stimulating activities that would inhibit changes within your body's systems. This is what both of these principles are hoping to prevent from happening. Knowing what to do and when exactly to change it gives you the chance to be more successful in your training routine. In this next part of the lesson, I'll show you a brief example of what exactly progression and variation is. While the best and simplest example I can give for variation is the transition of the sport of triathlon from swimming, biking, and running. Athletes who are engaged in this kind of sport don't perform all three activities in every training session that they have. What they simply do is that they interchange a different activity and assign it on specific days in the weeks that they are training. Variation can work best for beginners like you who are still experimenting on activities that you want to pursue. If you want to try running, you can vary your activity by engaging in swimming or biking, as this reduces the impact on your skeletal muscles because both are low-impact activities. Meaning, less stress is put on your joints and muscles because of the environment and the type of equipment you use. The resistance of the water and the resistance of the pavement are both different kinds of experiences that your body can either recover or adapt from differently. Another example is when you want to develop both your cardiovascular endurance and muscular endurance. You can interchange resistance training and cardio training in certain days of the week. Variation is important not only because it takes off the boredom in exercise, but it also allows your body the short time to recover from the activity that you do. Aside from this, the continuous change in stimulus triggers your body to become more exposed into different kinds of stress, thus inhibiting better adaptations and results. Remember body types? Remember how each of us possess unique shapes and sizes that make us different from one another? Well, it also goes with exercise. When you start training or performing regular exercise, you should structure your program in such a way that it fits your gender, age, level of fitness, needs, and previous experiences in exercise. This is what the principle of individualization is all about. You should know how to adjust your program to fit your exact profile. The training of young and adult, beginner and pro athlete, and man and woman are totally different sets of exercises altogether. You cannot expect to perform at the same level as a pro athlete does, because their training is a lot more complex and advanced than yours. In the same way that you cannot expect to feel less tired compared to a youngster moving and exercising. Each person's adaptation is unique to another person's way of adapting to a certain stimulus presented in a given activity. Individualizing or personalizing your training plan to suit your exact needs is also key to optimizing your training routine. Remember goal setting? When you know your exact goal and what specific component you aim to develop, you can personalize your exercise program easily. This is the quickest and easiest way for you to know what you need and want in your activity. Write it down and try to plot your goals. The next two principles, just like the principles of variation and progression, are associated with each other. These principles have something to do with your improvements in exercise, and these are the principles of reversibility and the law of diminishing returns. What are these? How do they relate to your overall performance and adaptation in exercise? We begin with the principle of reversibility. Ever tried exercising consistently and then you stopped somewhere along the way? Did you notice any change in your performance after deciding to resume exercise? This is what this principle is all about. The moment you stop training, you slowly lose your level of fitness and general adaptation to exercise. That's why the principle of reversibility is also known as the use it or lose it principle. What this simply means is that what the body doesn't utilize, it will lose it. But the reverse may also happen when you start to move and utilize it. If you start to use your body through physical activity and regular exercise, the body begins to adapt to the situation all over again. So what's the best thing to do? The principle's point is very easy. You need to use your body, move your body, and find ways on how to improve it. Otherwise, it will just undergo a state of slow deterioration through time. The next principle associated with the principle of reversibility is the law of diminishing returns. As I've mentioned earlier, both of these principles are directly related to your improvements and adaptations in exercise. This law applies to individuals who are both beginners and professionals. At the start of your exercise journey, you'll notice that you lose weight, gain muscles, or strength easily. But as you progress in the training routine and the longer that you practice, you'll notice that little to no improvements are seen in your performance. This is where the law of diminishing returns are at work. The more your body becomes adapted to the activity, the more stimulus it needs to keep on pushing with its improvements. This law actually works best for beginners like you, because the rate at which you see improvements is faster when you've come from a sedentary lifestyle to suddenly choosing into living an active one. As you continue on with your exercise, you would eventually need the extra stimulus to make your body experience further improvements, just is the case in the pictures on the slide. The training of Manny Pacquiao is much more complex and structured compared to the training of a young aspiring athlete. Manny Pacquiao has been at the sport for many years. Hence, his body has already been used to intense training and physical exertion. The law basically gives the reason why as Pacquiao further progresses in his training routine, he needs to find other activities that are more challenging and more stimulating to keep his adaptation at par. While the young boy in the picture starts off by developing his basic skill and then eventually climbs up the ladder of his training or exercise routine. Little exertion is needed for him to do because his body will immediately adapt to the load he places upon it, unlike Manny Pacquiao, who has been doing it for several years already. Both principles have something to do with the level of improvements a person must aim to achieve in exercise. These principles focus on what a person can and should do if faced in a given exercise routine. It pushes a person beyond his or her limits to perform more than what is expected. But isn't exercise supposed to be this way? Yes. Every time you are engaged in an activity or every time you are training for a sport, you should always aim to achieve excellence. You do this by means of finding the most strategized and complex training routine that can improve your performance. Aside from these things, these principles, just like the principles of variation and progression, focus on preventing a plateau in performance from happening. Knowing how important extra stimulus is in training gives you an edge in coping with the mechanics of your activity. We are almost done with the basic principles of exercise. The last parts of the lesson has something to do with the way you will create your training routine at the end of this course. This way, you will be independent in engaging in a lifetime of physical activity and health. Another thing that you need to consider when exercising is the way you arrange your exercise routine. When exercising, it is always important that you work your large muscle groups first before proceeding to working the smaller ones. What are some of your large muscle groups? The largest muscle groups that your body are composed of are the muscles of your lower body. It is composed of bundles of muscles that slide onto each other in every movement you perform. These muscle groups include your quadriceps, the muscles at the front of your thighs, the hamstrings, which are located at the back of your thighs, your gastrocnemius, or the muscles of your calves, and your glutes, or gluteus maximus and minimus, that compose the muscles of your buttocks. You need to arrange your exercise routine in such a way that these muscle groups are stimulated first. The reason for doing this is because these large muscle groups are used for support and as stabilizers of the body for the stimulus that will be presented during the duration of the exercise. Without these stabilizers being stimulated, you would have a hard time in balancing your body and moving it as agile as it's supposed to be. Another reason for working the large muscle groups first is to inhibit faster increase in core temperature. The fast increase in core temperature makes muscle recruitment of the body faster. This then results to a better and more agile performance. Aside from all these things, arranging your exercise routine this way decreases or greatly prevents you from experiencing any forms of musculoskeletal injuries like cramps, sprains, or strains. The next important thing you need to know about arranging exercises is the importance of warm-ups and cool-downs. We will discuss this further in the next lesson. For now, I'll give you a brief background on how these two things are different from each other. Remember, I kept mentioning at the start of the physical fitness tests how important warm-ups and cool-downs are? This is because both play a crucial role in changing the homeostasis of the body. Warm-ups are exercises that raise your core temperature, while cool-downs attempt to slow your body down. Without these two things being incorporated in your exercise routine, you would have a lot of complications afterwards. This is because these two are very much important in injury prevention. Aside from this, both are responsible in conditioning the body and mind before and after a light or heavy training. Yes, exercise does not only involve movements. Just like what I've been mentioning in some parts of this course, it is also a good exercise or training for your brain. Your body, when faced with stressors, needs preparation for it to always maintain its homeostasis. Without warm-ups and cool-downs, you are endangering yourself every single time you exercise. These are the reasons why both activities should always be incorporated in your training routine. What are some examples of warm-ups and cool-downs? Where do you insert them in your exercise? How long must you perform them during your training routine? Some very basic examples of warm-up exercises are jogging in place, brisk walking, and dynamic or moving stretches. Basically, the whole idea of a warm-up activity is for you to perform activities that would elevate or increase your heart rate. When your heart rate has already increased, it would be easier for blood to circulate within your musculoskeletal system. This then heats up the body, giving you more fluid and agile movements when you have reached your main exercise. While some basic examples for cool-down exercises involve a slow walk or a static or non-moving stretch. Warm-ups are inserted at the beginning of the exercise routine because of its role in increasing body temperature and heart rate, while cool-downs are inserted at the end of the exercise routine because its sole purpose is to slow the body down and bring it to rest. Each sets of warm-ups must be performed between 5 to 10 minutes, while cool-downs can range from 10 to 20 minutes or more. Both duration and time performed for the activities also varies when the exercises are light or heavy. Obviously, when you are to perform heavier or longer periods of exercise, you'd need longer warm-ups and cool-downs that range between 10 to 20 minutes. But if you are to perform light to moderate activities, you'd need shorter periods for both. Both of these parts of training are actually overlooked by people who are engaged in regular exercise. Some tend to skip these parts of exercise and automatically begin or abruptly end the training session. This is a mistake that most people often commit in exercising. Not allowing your body to adjust to the demands that you will put it on puts you at high risk in experiencing injuries and other bodily complications. Remember that story I told you during the cardiovascular system about that marathoner who abruptly stopped at the end of the finish line? He ended up having a heart failure. That's a worst-case scenario if cool-down exercises have not been incorporated in your training. Other consequences include muscle cramps during the activity because of insufficient warm-up exercises. Aside from this, the lack of focus in the activity will be apparent because the brain was not conditioned to perform the task it is about to do. Here's an extra tip for you in case you want to engage in regular weight training exercises. This practice is known as progressive resistance training. Progressive resistance training is the practice of gradually adding weight to a specific type of program. This is done after certain numbers of weeks of adaptation. Remember the 2-week adaptation period I mentioned earlier? Progressively lifting a said load at certain durations of the exercise inhibits increase in performance. This is because the stressors are changing and the body slowly finds different ways to adapt to these changes. Aside from the adaptation that it brings to the body, many recent studies have concluded that it aids more in weight loss and strength gains compared to just performing cardio training regularly. Yes, you heard me right. If you want to lose weight and gain lean muscles and strength, you need to lift weights or perform body weight training consistently. This is because of the domino effect it has to the body. Weight training increases the rate at which your metabolism works, especially when you couple this training program with a regular cardio training program. When this happens, it is easier for you to recover from your workouts and you gain extra lean muscle mass. When you have an increased number in muscle fibers, the body will find it easier to burn the excess calories it takes in. Why is this? Because compared to fat, muscles require higher number of calories or energy to perform efficiently. Many myths have surrounded the weight training industry to the point that women don't want to lift weights or perform body weight exercises because they think that it will make them too bulgy or too muscular. We will have a discussion on this in the last part of the course. This way, you will be educated enough to debunk those myths in exercise that you are probably holding in your thoughts for quite some time. But how do you perform progressive resistance training? How would you know how much or how little are you supposed to be lifting at the gym or when you are performing body weight training? Remember, I kept telling you earlier and in the past lessons that exercise is all about experimentation? Well, this is how progressive resistance trainings should go about, especially that you are a beginner in exercise. The most advisable way to go during your first few sessions is to learn the exercise. Remember, I have given you some basic body weight exercises during the musculoskeletal system discussions. Remember that I also gave you points on what to do and what not to do when you are doing specific exercises. Learning how to perform the skill correctly not only prevents you from obtaining injuries, but it highly affects the efficiency of your exercise. Knowing how to move and when to exactly move those body parts in exercise ensures you of a better training program that is efficient and beneficial in the long run. Some coaches suggest to perform resistance training by performing body weight exercises, then gradually progressing to lifting actual weights or loads. Choosing a weight that can be lifted 8 to 12 repetitions in one set is the usual beginner repetitive mode that is mostly applicable to you if you are to engage in weight training activities. From there, you gradually progress and add weight to the program until the number of sets you do increases or decreases. This strategy of progressive resistance training is applicable to help both the brain and the body to get familiarized to the stress that it is about to undergo on. At the end of this lesson, I'll be giving you a 4-week program, both for aerobic training and resistance training. These programs gradually progress and follow the different principles of exercise we've discussed. You can download or print the program after this course so that when you do the exercise, it will be easily accessible to you. The last two principles of exercise are known as the principles of retrogression and recovery. These two principles are related to each other in terms of achieving optimal performance in your training program. Why is this? The principle of retrogression specifically refers to overtraining the body by not allowing it ample recovery. This simply means that you train too hard that you don't get the ample time to rest in between your exercises. You have to remember that resting or recovery is still a component in fitness that you need to take into consideration. This is because many studies have linked a decrease in performance to the lack of recovery the body experiences after some stressors or loads have been placed upon it. Retrogression may not only lead to a decrease in performance, but also into several forms of injuries, over-fatigue, and worst, exhaustion. That's why the principle of recovery comes into picture. The question now is, how much time should you allot for recovery? Usually, the recovery time depends on the type of activity or training that you do. Cardio training requires at least 2 or 3 sessions of 24-hour recovery time. This is to enable your muscle fibers and other organ systems to return into its homeostasis, while resistance training or weight training exercises need at least 24 to 48 hours of recovery time. This is to inhibit muscle fiber repair and growth. But most athletes or active individuals don't apply this rule in their training. That's why retrogression occurs and they experience a lot of complications in their training routines. Allowing your body the ample time to rest and recover through eating the right amount of food, drinking the right amount of fluids, and giving it the right amount of relaxation and joy can help you become more efficient in your active lifestyle. Spending too much time and effort in exercising may also give you a feeling of distress and being burnt out. So you need to make sure to always incorporate recovery in your training program. But what does recovery exactly mean? Does it mean that you just lie down the whole day and be a couch potato because you've exerted so much effort in your exercise routine? No, this is not true. Most athletes and active individuals apply the concept of active recovery. What exactly is active recovery? The term itself is self-explanatory. This is where you will still spend the day exercising, but at a much lower intensity. If you have been continuously jogging for 30 minutes and you can cover 3 to 5 kilometers already, you can spend your recovery day by doing only half or part of that activity. Or maybe you can alternate high-impact exercises with low-impact exercises such as jogging and swimming. These exercises require different terrains where the load is transferred to the body at a lower impact in the water and at a higher impact on land. You don't have to go all the way and exert your effort when you are doing active recovery. Remember that you are giving your body the chance to relax and unwind from the stress. Active recovery can be beneficial in your training routine because your body is still kept active the whole week of your training program. This ensures that in between the days of your exercise, you don't feel lazy to re-energize or move your body again. But mind you, active recovery applies only to those people who are highly trained or well exercised. Beginners like you must always take the time to do complete recovery or rest. This is because your body has not been conditioned to perform the work that you are demanding it to do. You need to let your body fully recover so that your adaptations will be quicker and you will reap the benefits of exercise better. Those are the many exercise principles involved in fitness. I hope that you are more equipped with enough knowledge about fitness and how to improve on it. You might have given up at some point in your fitness journey because you've experienced a plateau many times. But I hope the lesson at least pointed out where you might have gotten your activity wrongly. The trick in remembering all this is to simply put in your mind that the body is an adaptable machine. Whatever stressor you put it into, it will always find its way to adapt, save, and restore itself. Exercise regularly and eat the right type of food, your body will continuously adapt and improve through time. But if you do the opposite, your body will always find ways on how to restore the damaged part or parts and eventually will get too tired and give up in the long run. It is a machine that needs to be continuously presented with different positive stimuli for it to adapt more and for it to become a healthy, fit, and well body. Knowing and applying the right principles in your exercise can help you be more efficient and successful in your fitness routine. So, be sure to strictly follow the training program for a month, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Good luck! Here are some simple activities that exhibit progression and variation. The walk, jog, run progression is the most correct principle to follow when you want to achieve running both for short and long distances. Ever tried running? The first time around you did it, were you successful in continuously running for 30 minutes? Most of you would say no, and some would say yes. But the consequences of this in the form of body pains the following day is evident. Anyway, walking for 30 minutes done continuously for 2 straight weeks, then gradually progressing to jogging at a very slow pace for 20 to 30 minutes, continuously done again for 2 straight weeks, eventually progressing to running at full speed, is progression at work. Now, I kept mentioning 2 weeks as the duration of each of your training phase. This is because 2 weeks is the usual adaptation of the body to a specific stimulus. After that said period, you need to restructure your program for your body to find new ways in adapting to new stressors again. Progression, when done in these bouts, will help you achieve your fitness goals easily. This is because you are not pushing yourself to the limit, nor are you undertraining yourself.